The time has come to lift the veil. Welcome to Unveiling the Threat of Islamic Extremism, presented by Qum Ministries. In Session 1, Islam 101, we join Kamal Salim as he explains the history, beliefs, and practices of Islam. As one who comes from among them, Kamal teaches from a perspective that cannot be ignored.
Welcome to Unveiling. In this session, we'll be talking about who is Christ to the Muslim and how we can educate the Muslim in reaching out the Muslim in the love of Christ. I want to start with the history before Islam and the culture. The culture was, it was a desert. The Muslim lived as tribes. The tribes lived over there. They have no ruling government. The only place that held them together in Mecca, there was a place called Kaaba. That's the cubical place, the black rock, where the Arabs at that time used to go around Kaaba. There was over 360 gods. They were worshipped. There's a god of fertility, god of fire, god of power, god of this, god of that. But there was three deities. They were very important to the Muslim: Allati, wal-Uzza, wal-Munat. Allati wal-Uzza wal-Munat. It's very easy for me to say. Nevertheless, there was a greater deity over there. His name was Hubal. It come in two syllables. Huwa, I am. Baal, the one who is greater, the one who is stronger, the one who is greater and bigger than anything else. And in this, he declared, I am more so than any other god, specifically against God of heaven and earth. This deity declared himself as the great I am. The Arabs at that time prayed for this deity, and they used to throw sticks. They have multitude of sticks, and however the sticks will fall before the deity, they will know how God spoke to them. These deity at that time, they used to refer to them as Allah. Allah of this, Allah of that. Even today, Islam still use the name of Allah to their own God. In Arabic, these referred to as ilah, but ilah, which is a God. But nevertheless, when you worship the God himself, he become the God, which is Allah. In that world over there, the tribes were divided. They killed each other. When a woman gets pregnant, she used to give her child to her husband. If it's a boy, the boy was celebrated. And they welcomed him to life because boy carried his father's name and he want to be a warrior. They want to teach him everything. On the other hand, if it was a girl, many of the tribe men, what happened? They dug a hole and they buried the girl alive because she was dishonored. Because when the tribe invaded their self, what happened? The first thing, they took each other women. And this has become point of shame to the culture because I took your woman and now she's pregnant with my children. So therefore they dishonored each other, and that was the norm. Islam today still have issue with women. Women is not the most important thing in Islam. As a matter of fact, the woman is only half of the man. A man is the first, he's the first citizen in Islam. Woman is equal to a chair, to anything in the house. A woman is to give her husband a pleasure. A woman is to birth children, to sew clothes, to cook, to clean. Many of the women Muslim today, currently, they never had a pleasure once in their lifetime because their men were not educated how to treat the woman, because the culture teach them is the woman is not important, that she is not equal to man. So therefore, whether the man is telling the truth, if he's right or not, the woman has to obey him and follow him, because the Quran says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa." Men are in charge of women. If a woman disobey you, you have the power to ostracize her. If a woman still disobey you, you have the power to beat her up. If she still disobey you and you tried everything, then you have the rights to behead her. The fuel of hell are made out of women. Because when God sent Eve to to Adam in the garden. She was to be the helpmate to complete him. She took many good parts from him, not just the rib. She took the best. She was fashioned in the glory of God for the purpose to be a crown of her husband, a crown in the gate, a crown in the city, a crown every place else. This is how we believe in our Christian culture, but not so in Islam. The current Islamic practices has not changed. The Muslims still go around Kaaba, just like the previous Muslims, the previous Arabs. The Arabs used to come from all over the place, and what happened? They go around the Kaaba 7 times, and they call for their God, and they whistle for their God, and they clap for their God, and many of them, they dressed, they took their clothes in nakedness, and they walked so they can show their purity, and offer their self for those spirits to inhabit them. Many of these people practice many of the things that you see in the pillars of Islam, the 5 pillars of Islam, which is the first one is to declare, which is the greatest pillar. It's called La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. To everyone to declare there's no God but Allah and Muhammad his prophet. You cannot be Muslim unless you declare that. And Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, says, the Great Commission of Islam says, Inni umirtu an uqatil al-shu'ub. Allah commanded me to fight the people of the world until everyone says La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. Until everyone. Even though that you are not at war with Islam, Islam is at war with you because you have not received Islam. The second pillar, it's called as-salat, which is the Muslim face, the Muslim face the east toward Kaaba, and they pray 5 times a day. And in their prayers, they bow before God. It's an act of humility. So therefore, what happened is when they stand in a military salute. Afterward, they bow before him, and then they lay on their face. And in laying on their face, they declaring, that everything, inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. My life belongs to you. My death belongs to you. Everything that I do is an act. Islam does not mean peace. Islam means slavery. In order to receive Islam, you have to surrender your life. The greatest sin in Islam is you could not ask question, why? The third one is al-zakat. It is mandatory to give 2.5% of all your finances, but one great portion goes toward jihad. It is the Muslim duty to give zakat. It is very important when people in America start supporting, giving towards zakat, toward the Muslim, that the Muslim said we're going to give it to orphans. But they do not know that many portion of this must go into jihad against the West. The fourth pillar, it is as-siyam, which is, this is when the Muslim fast for 30 days. Month of Ramadan was the hardest month for me. The Muslim fought during the month of Ramadan because this is the only month that the Muslim could be holy. Outside of the month of Ramadan, they just were going after the girls, after this, after that, some drinking behind the scene. We were doing all kinds of things. Ramadan was just my desert. You just fasting and praying. You could not look at women. You could not do this. You could not do that. So therefore, what happened is that's the only time the Muslim they feel that they're holy, and that's the majority of the Islamic war that they launched attack against the enemy because they felt pure. They felt they are holy, and so therefore what happened is it's the month of Ramadan, and that is one of the most important months for the Muslim. This is where Muhammad received the Quran for the first time. This is when Muhammad ran for his life. He was running, he was living in Mecca. When he lived in Mecca over there, what happened is during the 14 years when he declared Islam, what happened? Only 118 people followed him. Islam did not go far. But what happened is when Muhammad ran away for his life, his Meccan tribe told him, we've seen Islam, we don't want Islam. What we have is better. After all, you are declaring one of our deity, and you're not declaring the rest of those deities. So Muhammad, ran away for his life, and during those 30 days, he fasted and he prayed. So the Muslim fast and pray to do what Muhammad did. This is called the biography of Muhammad. The biography became part of the 5 pillars. The biography became part of the heart of Islam, although it was not from Allah, but yet it came to be part of Islam. And later when Muhammad declared it, Muhammad says, he spoke, Allah spoke. He declared the Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, the month of Ramadan, and he declared all what he said. It was what Muhammad did first and what Allah said later on to back him up. The last pillar, it was Al-Hajj, which is to go and create what's so-called pilgrimage. The pilgrimage is when you go to Mecca. And in Mecca over there, the Muslim dressed in white clothing because in the battles that Muhammad was fighting against the Quraysh, and he dressed in white clothing. So they were showing their right shoulders to show their right arm that they are strong, but yet they were hungry, they were thirsty, they were really afraid they're going to lose the battle. So what he did, he deceived them to show them that nothing happened to them and they're standing strong, and he showed them his right arm. Even so the Muslim today took this, and now it became part of Hajj, which is, pilgrimage to Mecca. The last pillar of Islam, many of the Muslims do not talk about it publicly, but in the inner circles of Islam, it's called the invisible pillar, and that is to go in jihad fi sabilillah, to war for the sake of Allah. These are the 5 pillars, and that's what make the Muslim today who they are and what they are, because many of the Muslims follow those pillars. And part of the salat, as I was spoken about, the Arabs before Islam, they were commanded to pray, and they were to face, Kaaba, where's all those deities, and also they were commanded to fast, to seek those deities. Those deities, when they sought them out, what happened? They were seeking higher, purpose and higher calling. And Muhammad, like many other people, used to draw into the caves. Muhammad was drawn into a cave outside of Mecca. This cave, it's called Cave Hurayq, the cave of the flame. In that cave over there, Muhammad, one day he was fasting and praying, and all of a sudden he had an encounter with a spirit, and he referred to it as a spirit of light. When he had the encounter of the spirit, what happened is he fell on his face and on his forehead, and he fell in fear, and he was in fear right there. And all of a sudden that became part of Islam, how to pray for the deity, how to bow before those spirits. And when that spirit spoke to Muhammad, he said to him, Muhammad, iqra. Muhammad, read. And Muhammad says, wama ana biqari'. What do I read? And then the spirit commended him again. Muhammad, iqra, read. He said, wama ana biqari'. What do I read? I have no understanding. The third time the spirit commended him. Muhammad, iqra. And he cried out, wama ana biqari'. And then when he could not speak about what has happened or what to speak, the spirit inhabited him. And the spirit read and spoke and says, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم. الذي علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. إن الإنسان لا يطغى. So therefore Muhammad came with something was not his. Now it was given to him, but it came through the inhabitants. So therefore everything that the Islam practiced, it was a pre-Islam. Does that make any sense? So Islam took everything, the name of the deities, the deity that is, everything that they did pre-Islam, and they were practicing there. But Islam is the yoke that is yoking them into slavery. So therefore what happened is, Muhammad, when he was born, everyone that took care of Muhammad died. His uncle, his grandfather, everybody was taking care of Muhammad. Something was happening. Even the lady that they took Muhammad to feed him, to breastfeed him, because that was practice of the Arab world. Like if the mother could not breastfeed the baby, then they take it to another lady that's what she does for a living. Even that lady, she brought him back. She said, I could not, keep him because crises are happening. Circumstances are happening and they are not real. And I'm not sure if I want to keep this little lad anymore. Take him back. Now, what Islam tells you when you see this, the history of Muhammad on National Geographic or PBS or whatever, they tell you a different story. That story is written for the West. It's unique for your understanding. Because in Islam, al-taqiyya, which is lying to your enemy, and al-kitman, which is deceiving your enemy purposely, these are natural practices. I was practicing those in the United States of America. Why? Because when you deceive your enemy, they will believe that you are worship the same God. You know, as a Muslim, matter of fact, the Muslim call themselves the people of the book. Who are the people of the book? The Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Muhammad grew up, and his grandfather and his uncles, the Quraysh tribes, were traders. They traded with different nations. They took the camels, and they did different things. And Muhammad was learning the trading, and he was growing into this. But Muhammad, most of his time, he was put at this place, and this place, you know, at priest. The priest, these are the falling priests, which is they believed very much that Jesus Christ was only a prophet, that Jesus Christ this and Jesus Christ that, which is what shaped Muhammad's destiny and shaped Islam. That priest, his name is Buhayra, and he was teaching Muhammad. Muhammad himself was learning from him so much that the theology that Muhammad took, it was stories. Stories were told to him by that priest from the Jewish, the Old, the Torah, and the Zabur, and all this, all other things, and also from the New Testament. So he was shaping his destiny for him. And Muhammad took all this, you know, into his spirit, man. That's why the Quran became Qasasi, which is a storybook. But nevertheless, the political theology became heart of Islam. Why? Because when Muhammad was learning about all this, and he believed all of a sudden when he had his encounter in the cave, he went to his wife and he said, I feel that I'm possessed with demons. He came to throw himself off the cliff several times, just like the story of Mark 5 in the Bible. And so what happened, he came to throw himself off the cliff, but then his wife, she had multitude of camel, and she married him for business. And so therefore she told him, have you thought about yourself? You could be a prophet. So Muhammad didn't know that he was a prophet until he was told that he may be a prophet. It was after he got in his 40s that he started talking about Islam and the way of Islam. Now Muhammad, when he went to start preaching to the Jews, and he told them, listen, I'm the last prophet. I came to you to teach the Jewish people, you know, to fulfill, you know, the purpose. It's almost like he's the Messiah, you know, the final prophet. The Jews said, we know our prophet and our prophets, and you are not one of our prophets. He went to the Christian and he said, I am one of your prophets. They said, we know the prophets, and you are not one of our prophets. Because, you know, the Word of God says you know them by their fruit. The fruit of that spirit that carries you and the language you speak. Muhammad was growing up, and all of a sudden he realized that the Christians and Jews are not listening to him. This is before he launched attack against the Christians and Jews. And so he hated the Jews and the Christians to the point that the entire Arabian Peninsula was filled. The riches of the people were in the Jews and the Christians. And the Arab, the nomad, the Bedouins were scattered all over, and they were killing each other left and right, as we see them today killing each other left and right. More Muslims are killing Muslims than anyone killing Muslims. When he went to Medina, Medina at that time used to call Yathrib, the city of Yathrib. Yathrib was a small city. A lot of outlaws lived in that area. A lot of people over there that they are not accepted in the big cities. That's mix of nomads. And they lived over there that they have no qualification of anything. What happened? They welcomed him and received and welcomed his prophecy as the prophet of Islam. And when he went over there, what happened? Muhammad went from prophet to a tribe ruler. He started commending his leadership, and he started hijacking all other tribes, food, camels, everything. And then Yathrib turned from Yathrib to Medina. What Medina means, it means Al-Qaeda, which is in English, it means Al-Qaeda. That's the first place where Muhammad was launching his war against his own people. And he started, growing he became a warlord. And from warlord, he became a leader. And from a leader, he became a ruler. And from a ruler, he became an army, commanding an army. And now he's taken out nations in the Arabian Peninsula. Islam was starting in that direction. When Muhammad moved from Mecca to Medina, the Muslim at that time used to bow toward Jerusalem in Mecca. They were worshiping the God of Jerusalem, where everything happened, where Judaism and Christianity birthed. But when he moved to Medina, where they were facing all the way to Kaaba, in Mecca. So he changed everything. There's a lot of inconsistency in Islam that changed throughout history. Even when Muhammad died, the Quran was not written. He did not leave the Quran. When Muhammad died, he did not say, who's going to inherit me? Who's going to take my place? Muhammad, one of his first caliphate, his name is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq gave Muhammad his own daughter. Her name is Aisha. She was 6 years old when Muhammad married her. And Abu Bakr told Muhammad, please don't consummate her until she become, at older age, at 9. And once so, you can consummate her. But Muhammad married her and she lived in his house. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq became the first caliphate who inherited Muhammad. Muhammad, the Muslim tell you he died like Moses, but Muhammad was poisoned by a woman. When Muhammad started destroying the tribes, the Jewish tribes and the Christian tribes all over the Arabian Peninsula and enforcing Islam, Aslim Taslim, his message was. If you become Muslim, you're safe. If not, then you are dead. So therefore, what happened is he destroyed the tribe of Qurayza and he took the daughter. And one day, she gave him his favorite part of the sheep, which is the right shoulder of the lamb. And she poisoned it. And he was dying. It took him a couple years to die. He changed from his coloring all the way to gray and then to black color. And what happened is he was dying and he brought her. He said, why did you do such a thing, woman? She said, Prophet of Allah, the Prophet of Islam, I thought I'm doing everybody a great favor. If you were the prophet who you said you are, then you would have known that this shoulder was poisoned. But if you did not, then I saved the world from you. That was the words that she said to him on his bed of death. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, 3 days later, came out and he said, Muhammad is dead, I am your caliphate. This is the birth of the Shia and the Sunnis. Those, his followers, the caliphate, Umar ibn Khattab, Uthman bin Affan, Ali bin Abi Talib, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq were his first caliphate, those who followed him. And his family said, we are his bloodline. His bloodline are the Shia. And the Shia said, it should go to us, the caliphate. And his buddies that they followed him, they said, no, it went to his friend. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq killed over 80,000 people in 1 week. Just because many people didn't want Islam after Muhammad died and they went back to the old ways. And so he went, and now it became the way by the sword. These are the histories, of Islam. And so now when Muhammad went to Medina, what happened? Muhammad spoke about the abrogation. Allah, the God of the Quran, said, I have changed my mind. One more time. What I have given you in Mecca no longer apply. I'm giving you something better, greater. And you must follow it, because if you don't, then you go into hell. And so therefore the abrogation came, and this is what we refer to it in Arabic, an-nasikh wal-mansukh. What happened in that? Now the Muslims, they have to replace everything else. So Muhammad didn't leave the Quran, and he didn't know what to do. They start, Uthman bin Affan 60 years later, he brought everything, they came together, and they took the surah, the books that they are filled with demonic power, and they cast them out, and they kept the only one they are acceptable. At that time, the Quran was not punctuated, was not dotted, didn't have, and it was in old Arabic, which is even, nobody understood because it was Quraysh Arabic. That Arabic was so unclear to anyone. So therefore what happened is the Muslim didn't have the Quran, and they were looking at it and they don't know what order it came in. So what happened is the Muslim said, okay, here's a solution. We'll go ahead and get it from the smallest book to the greatest book. So they put it from the smallest to the biggest because they don't know what order it came in. Nothing was structured. Nothing was put in place. It was 60 years after Muhammad died, and it was collected from men and women in the Arabian desert. While the man that wrote the Bible, and I'm making differences before you, these walked with Christ, seen the Christ, they testified to the glory of God. While the other one, they gave what they gave, their testimony, it was, I heard by so-and-so said that so-and-so said that Muhammad said this. This is the majority of the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sirah was collected. Why I'm giving you this is not to make you to hate the Muslims, but this is to make you understand the mind and the heart of Islam. Many of the Muslims do not know their own history. The reason I know so much about this, I was part of the Muslim Brotherhood. We studied the history of Islam from end to end, and we came to know what truly happened. But our action with the world is we're given always the good picture about Islam and not the reality of Islam. Why? Because we could not give you the reality until you accept Islam. And once you accept it, now we tell you the truth. And now you have no escape, because if you convert, you're commended to death. Muhammad says, whoever leaves Islam, kill him. So now the abrogation, and this is what we refer to it as an-nasikh wal-mansukh, and also what we refer to it as duality of Islam. Islam only 14% religion, and the rest of it is a full government structure, military, civic, Sharia, banking, all of it, the whole government system. And anytime Islam is entering, just like entering the Western civilization, it entered by the peaceful, beautiful part of Meccan. When Muhammad was speaking peace in Mecca. And then once they enter the state, that government, that nation, what happened? They start declaring the other part that took place in Medina. So first it's the peaceful part, and then it changes to critical and radical part, where Islam itself could not be equal to any other religion, because they believe it's Allah made, while Christianity is man-made. Why they refer to Christianity as man-made? Although the entire story in the Quran, they are written by men. They are not written by Allah. Why they are, man-made? Because these people testified to Jesus and wrote it. While Muhammad, the stories were given to him, and he said they were told to me by Gabriel. So therefore, they were given to him from Allah. And many of the Muslims do not know the true story. Even when he was on his bed of death, he said, I wonder, where will I be tomorrow? I wonder if Christianity is truth and Islam is false. He was telling the truth on his bed. This one, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, shut him in for 3 days, and 3 days later he came, he's dead. Nobody knows what happened behind closed door. Sharia law. What is Sharia law? Sharia law made from 3 legs. We refer to it in Islam as the trilogy, just like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is to replace the 3. And that's the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sirah. Quran is what was given to Muhammad by the Spirit when it inhabited him. The Hadith is tradition of Muhammad, that he started saying, this is what Allah was telling me. And he started declaring things, and they became equal to the Quran. And the last part is the Sirah, which is how Muhammad lived his life. All these become part of the mechanic of Sharia law. Not all Sharia law is given from Quran. Sharia law is, a lot of it is what we talk about prior to Islam, how he grew up and how he became and how he formed. And in Islam, they don't have Genesis. They don't have the books of prophets. They don't have any of this. So what they have to lean on, the Jewish Bible. They have to lean on the Christian Bibles. And they take all the stories and the conditioning, and they take the laws and they translate with a group called Shura. The Shura, they take what they learned from this and they bring Islam to clarity based on those foundations that took place in the Bible. So therefore, in order for Islam to exist, it has to manifest of the Bible. But in order for Islam to exist, it must destroy these two to say we are the final religion. Does that make any sense? In the Garden of Eden, there was 2 trees. One is the tree of life. And there was a sword about it. The second one's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The serpent resident was in a tree of knowledge of good and evil. While the tree of life, it was the living God to come, Jesus Christ. Because he said, those who eat my flesh and drink my blood, they will never die. He said, I am the way and life and truth, and no one come to the Father but through me. The life is in Christ Jesus, is in that tree of life. And God was saving it for the coming of the King. And so what happened when Satan stole the inheritance from Adam and Eve and fell, now all men were condemned by sin. They became of sinful nature. Why am I bringing this? Because one day Abraham walked and he brought his son Isaac on the Mount of Moriah, right there. And when he brought his son, he was going to offer him as a sacrifice. What did he do to his son? He made him carry his wood on his back. Jesus carried his cross on his back to be crucified on. And then after he gathered all this, he was seated on to be slaughtered on that altar. And when he did this, God said to Abraham, he said, behold, I'm going to give you something pure, something unique, something called the Lamb of God, free from spot and wrinkles, the firstborn among all. It is so young that it has never fell into sin. And this I will give you in the place of your son. Do not kill Isaac, kill the lamb that I'm giving you. Thousands of years later, Jesus Christ was crucified on the same spot, the same place, the same altar where Abraham put that altar where he's going to offer his, and God says, I'm offering my son to you. Why am I telling you this? Because the Muslim today still go to pilgrimage, to Hajj in Mecca. And what they are seeking, exactly what Abraham did, and they're offering sacrifice as for their sins. They're offering lambs. They butcher the lambs for the blood. But they did not realize that the sin is not there, that God gave them a purpose. He gave them a hope. He gave them blessing. His name is Yahweh. The Lord is one. God the Father, He is the Spirit that's seated on the throne. The Son is the image of God that came in the flesh and walked to set the people free, that they don't have to offer sacrifice on altars. They don't have to offer sacrifice for their sin, because He became the ultimate sacrifice. All sin, He took it in and He said, I am. I am. And if you see me, you have seen the Father. What happened? He was pure. He was very, very special. My Muslim brothers and sisters, behold, Jesus Christ was sent to you as a gift to welcome you home, to make a way for you to say, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to slave every day and night and not know where you're going to go tomorrow. He said, if you eat my flesh and drink my blood, if you come in and testify to my glory, then you will dine with me. He said, I stand outside the door knocking every day. If you let me in, I will come and dine with you. Meaning you will dine with Him in paradise for everlasting life. and you will live a life of freedom in this time and this hour. This is the hope for all nations. This is a hope for you. يا أخي المسلم, يا أختي المسلمة, تعالوا معي. Come and know who is Jesus Christ. The Christ that I saw, He healed my soul, He healed my mind, He healed my spirit, He healed my body. But above all, I came to know the God, Jesus Christ, the image of the Most High God, came to serve me that day. You don't have to serve a God that you don't hear from, that you don't know. This God, He will come and introduce you to who He is.
Thank you for watching this session of Unveiling, the Threat of Islamic Extremism. Unveiling was produced by Qum Ministries. The mission of Qum Ministries is to educate the Christian and Jewish communities about the impending dangers of radical Islam and to reach Muslims with the redemptive message of Christ. To learn more about Kamal Salim and the work of Qum Ministries, or to access additional resources concerning Islamic extremism, go to qumministries.com.